In other news, the vote to leave the European Union hasn't yet had an impact on the prices that we pay in the shops, as deflation continues for most items. That is a finding of the British Retail Consortium, but it warns that costs could start rising in the first quarter of next year. Overall, shop prices were 1.7% lower than they were in October versus the same time last year. That's almost unchanged from the month before. It says that supermarket price wars, well, they're to blame because they're cutting prices to win new customers. All of that contributing to the fall. Well, let's speak to the retail commentator, Kate Hardcastle. She's in Leeds for us. That's not her, but nonetheless, let's hope I can speak to her. Kate, if you can hear me, talk me through the figures, because we've had an indication this morning, all sorts of indications as far as inflation is concerned, but the British Retail Consortium suggesting no effect yet from Brexit, but we'll start feeling it next year.
I think there's some very interesting things going on in the dynamic here, Ben. One of the most interesting is, as we saw with the Marmite Gate a couple of weeks ago, prices are increasing in terms of manufacturers and businesses needing to review how are they positioning their products and the prices they charge for them. There is no appetite, however, from the consumer to get any price increases when they're struggling each week to make sure that they can get their weekly shops and the items that they need. So what's happening behind the scenes are retailers and manufacturers doing everything they can to protect you from that increase, and some of the ways they're doing that might be re-engineering the products, looking how much they can accept in terms of an internal increase in price that are not passed on to the consumer, and looking at different alternatives for perhaps sourcing. But what will happen in time will that us as we as consumers will have to see some of these increases in store.
You say there's no appetite from consumers for that increase in prices, and you touched on some of the reasons there about supermarkets, drastically cutting prices to keep custom. But nonetheless, I suppose the reality is that given that fall in the value of sterling, whether we like it or not, we're going to be paying more for goods that are imported from overseas.
That's right, and that's going to affect many different things, including anyone in that middle market, anyone in that fashion market, anyone in the luxury market where it's not a necessity item. The grocery wars will continue because of the big push from discounter. Consumers have got more power than ever before. They have transparency, and what they're looking for with the retailers they engage is true and good pricing and sensible pricing that's there week after week on their grocery shop. So they want to make sure that they use their power as a consumer, even being fickle if needed, to get the best grocery shop for them. Anything else, hence things like the next figures today, it's going to be a struggle, it's going to be a challenge, and they're holding off any price increases, constantly discounting, looking at ways to attract consumer in store. The thing is, Ben, that it isn't just a competitor of a jumper against a jumper in one retailer to another. The competition's so much wider than that, because consumers now are buying more experience as ever before against material value. So really, the price of a cinema ticket is up there for grabs against the price of a jumper. And therefore, as a fickle, very vibrant, fast-moving consumer now, we're hard to track, we're hard to persuade, and retailers are doing all they can, including injuring themselves on prices, to protect us and keep us coming back.
Kate, you preempted my question I wanted to ask you about next, but you got in there already. So thanks very much, Kate Hardcastle, that retail commentator, talking us through those numbers on inflation, and as we talked about next as well.